You found the skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey there, YouTube, the Dapper Dinosaur here. I'm coming with a sort of special bonus episode for Fluffy Dino Lads. This is actually talking about a different video than that one, but I think it betrays the same kind of problems with knowledge of paleontology and how it works. So, without further ado, here we go! A Fluffy Dino Lads bonus episode, Rugops.
Good evening, guys. In his image here, and today we're going to be talking about dinosaurs, because I like dinosaurs. Don't know anybody who doesn't like dinosaurs. If they do, they're wrong. But dinosaurs have always been something I have enjoyed. Well, you might say I've enjoyed them for millions of years. Dinosaurs are something I've always enjoyed. And today we're going to talk about, because I like odd things and things that aren't really well known, we're going to talk about a dinosaur that's not really well known, and that being Rugops. And just for fun, I'm going to stick a couple of images up on the screen here in a second. I'm going to number them 1 through 4, and as I talk, you can decide which one is the Allosaurus, which one is the Tyrannosaurus, which one is the Rugops, and which one is the Carnotaurus.
Okay, a few things. One, yes, I did turn in his image into a Nyctosaurus, and no, I'm not sorry about it. Another thing, Carnotaurus is not a thing. I know that in my regular series I said I wasn't really going to ping you too hard on dinosaur names, but here's one of the things. Do not insert new syllables into a word. It's Carnotaurus. There you go. Third, alright, when we get these images, I want you guys who are watching to put in the comments or in the live chat when this premieres which you think each number is. So our options are Allosaurus, Carnotaurus, Rugops, and Tyrannosaurus. So, as we keep going, fill in your answers, because I'll be curious to see how many of you actually get it right first time, because I did.
Alright, so let's jump into those pictures and start talking about Rugops. Okay, so the 4 images are going to play in the background here, and you tell me which one you think it is. Let's talk a little bit about Rugops, and a little bit about what Rugops was all about. Rugops was found back in what was described back in 2004. It comes from Niger. There's only been one particular specimen found. The word Rugops means wrinkle face. And it's called that because the skull bone is...
Okay, again, this is not something I would normally nitpick. But in his image, in this video, complains about paleontologists being inadequate anatomists. And here's the thing, if you're going to complain about people being inadequate anatomists, you can't use terms like skull bone. The rugose texture is present on the nasal bone of Rugops, as is typical for Abelisaurids. It's one of the reasons we know this is an Abelisaur. Abelisaurs tend to have rugose nasal bones. Rugops had some particularly rugose nasal bones, and also had little holes in the nasal bone, which likely supplied blood to a soft tissue crest.
Believed to have had a lot of blood vessels in it that kind of gives it a wrinkled or face. It's believed to have possibly had a crest on its head because the skull had little holes in the top that seemed to have meant for having some kind of crest, or maybe some kind of sun-catching device up there to help it warm up. It actually caused evolutionists to revise their chronology just a little bit, and we'll get into that in just a second. Basically, they had to revise their chronology because they really hadn't expected to find any theropods.
Saying it caused scientists to revise their timeline is needlessly vague. What actually happened was the discovery of an Abelisaur demonstrated that at least until a bit before the Campanian in the Cretaceous period, Africa must have been still connected to South America, which allowed the transfer of Abelisaurs from one place to the other, because until this find, the Abelisauridae had been restricted to South America, Antarctica, and Madagascar.
In Africa, where it was found, but they did find them, and so they found those. They had to revise their chronology just a little bit. Now I'm going to show you the fossil that they found here in just a second. But basically, what you need to take away from Rugops, estimated to be about 6 meters long, weigh about 30 tons or so. 6 meters being about 7 feet. So it's a fairly decent-sized carnivore. Its head is constructed kind of delicately, so people believe that it might have been a scavenger rather than a full-blown carnivore. which sort of makes sense to a certain extent. It's 6 meters. Sorry, it's about 20 feet, not 7 feet. So it's believed it might have been a scavenger rather than a carnivore, or a full-fledged carnivore at any rate. But at any rate, so let's go ahead and jump back to and see if anybody got it right and figured out which one of those dinosaurs I just showed you was Rugops.
Okay, first, there wasn't really a good place to cut in and address this, but in his image said that scientists didn't expect to find theropods in this part of the world, but that's just false. Theropods have always had a worldwide distribution. The question was whether or not Abelisaurs would be in this part of the world. And up until the discovery of Rugops, the answer was, well, we don't know, but we don't have any evidence that they are. But also, now that we've seen all 4 images, this is the time I really want you to get those comments in where you tell me what your guesses are, because in his image is about to correctly reveal which image is which.
And if you guessed number 3, you would be correct. Number 3 was Rugops. Number 1 was Carnotasaur, number 2, Allosaur, and number 4, the ubiquitous body of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Now, the reason I showed you all 4 of those is because I wanted to illustrate something to you. They're all pretty similar, aren't they? It's pretty hard to tell them apart.
Basically, the only thing these animals have in common is that they're theropods. They have a sort of theropody build. These are not similar animals. The fact that you think people can't easily tell these apart actually probably says more about your low opinion of people in general than it does about these animals. These are very easy to tell apart animals.
Keep that in mind as we go forward here. We're going to discuss a little bit more about Rugops. Rugops is similar to Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's also similar to Allosaurus. It's also similar to Carnotasaur. And there's a bunch of other what are labeled Abelisaurs, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, that all look kind of similar.
Yes, they look similar because they're in the same family. It's like pointing out all felids look similar. Lions, tigers, kitty cats, caracals, lynxes, bobcats. Oh my goodness, they all look similar. Yeah, that's what a family of organisms is. These are the kinds of things you would probably identify as being in the same quote-unquote kind. But they do not look similar to tyrannosaurs or allosaurs. They look very different from these things.
Alright, keep that in mind as we move forward here. Alright, but props to anybody who picked up on which one Rugops was.
Knowing my audience, I'm just going to assume that all of you picked up on which one Rugops was. Or at the very least, most of you.
So, Rugops has some very special features in particular associated with its head. It had some kind of like armored scale on it, almost as if Rugops was like potentially concerned. Well, obviously Rugops didn't think of this, but it had been designed to lower its head and attack, particularly smaller prey. So I don't think it doesn't seem to have been interested in larger prey.
I couldn't find this claim about armored skin in the initial paper describing Rugops, but then again, armored skin was well known in Abelisaurs, so it's not unlikely.
There's been some speculation in evolutionary circles that it actually had vestigial arms, and you saw that on number 3, that the artists had drawn it with vestigial arms, because they don't actually have arm bones. We'll show you what they actually do have here in a second.
Okay, let's say you found this skull that's on screen right now. And you were a good enough mammal anatomist to know that this is a cat skull. This is from family Felidae. But all you have for this particular species is the skull. Which is more than enough to tell you that it's a cat. But then someone says, okay, well, let's draw this animal so that we can put an illustration in some magazine or something when we, there are news reports on our find. You think you're going to have, say, maybe a tail or retractable claws? Yeah, almost certainly. Now you could say, well, there are some cats that have very, very short tails like the bobcat or the lynx, and the cheetah doesn't have retractable claws. Okay, but the rule is for cats that they have retractable claws and long tails. There being a couple exceptions doesn't mean that your most likely reconstruction for this animal is going to lack those features. It's the same thing for Abelisaurs. Every single known Abelisaur arm is tiny and vestigial, so the chances that Rugops had big beefy arms are pretty much nil. Is it possible? Yeah, I guess, but until we find those arm bones, the only not stupid option is vestigial arms. Any other option is less likely than vestigial arms by a lot.
But yeah, there's been some speculation that they had vestigial arms, that maybe their arms were not really formed all the way. It dates back to the it dates back all the way to the late Cretaceous period, which is made it one of the smaller carnivores of its day, because it would have been supposedly competing with Spinosaurus and a few others. It also has one of the shortest names of any dinosaur, Rugops being fairly short. It's believed to have been about 4 feet high at the hip, thereabouts. Something along those lines. So Rugops has some very interesting little traits, but there's some other stuff that goes along with Rugops. It's believed to have been run about as fast as a polar bear and weigh about as much as a rhinoceros, roughly.
Yeah, none of this stuff is actually very well known. It's all just estimates based on the size of the find and approximations based on general Abelisaur anatomy and proportions.
But there's some other stuff that goes along with Rugops, which is very, very interesting. Now, Rugops was described in a scientific paper published back in 2004 in the Proceedings of the Royal Society. And the paper was not so much about Rugops as it was about some features of basically proposing a new theory for Gondwanaland, which was a sort of Pangea. There's an article on Pangea I can link to in the description.
Gondwana isn't a sort of Pangea. It's one of 2 supercontinents Pangea broke up into during the Mesozoic. The southern continent, Gondwana, was at least initially composed of South America, Africa, Australia, Madagascar, and Antarctica.
But at any rate, so let's go ahead and talk about what the bones they actually found. You've been seeing pictures of the skeletons they have. What did they actually find in the dirt? What do we actually have to look at here? Let's go ahead and take a look. I'm about to flash up on screen, and that's what we have for Rugops. That's it. That's all we've got. The whole Rugops genera.
The singular form of that word is genus. Genera is plural.
Is based on that. Matter of fact, it's not even based on that. You're going to see that in just a second. But this is the point. The point I'm trying to drive home with this video. A lot of dinosaur fossils are based on this lie. They're presented as full fossils, but what they in fact are is this. They are partial fossils. All we have for Rugops is a skull. That's all we've got. And it's not even a full skull. You're going to see what's left of it here in a second.
Alright. As I've said before, I've always had pleasant interactions with In His Image, both on YouTube and on Twitter, and I do not want to be a jerk. However, this is not a lie. The extent of the finds were presented in the paper. Even your soft tissue reconstruction with the embedded skeletal reconstruction includes as grayed out areas the bones we can infer with almost 100% certainty, but that weren't found, and as the entire black area, the bones that weren't found at all. The paper is very open about this. The fact that some non-scientific press may have put out extraordinary claims about this animal, or that some paleo artists might have drawn it with hypothetical reconstructions, isn't a lie. And one of the things is that science is one of the most open and honest endeavors that humanity has ever embarked upon. And the reason for that is because of peer review. When people are dishonest in science, they get called out, and it usually ends their careers. And here's In His Image a guy who, I'm sorry, but knows absolutely nothing about this topic. And he's going to call out scientists as liars on the basis of literally nothing.
They're presented based on a lie. This is probably a juvenile version of a Tyrannosaurus.
I don't even know what to say about this claim that Rugops could be a juvenile Tyrannosaurus. This is about on the same level as looking at a koala skull and saying, oh, maybe it's a baby human. No, there is absolutely, and I want to make it extremely clear, absolutely zero chance whatsoever that Rugops is a juvenile Tyrannosaur or anything other than a Abelisaur. Now, Can I say for 100% that it's not a juvenile of a larger species of Abelisaur? Well, actually I can, because even if it is a juvenile specimen, its species is still Rugops because it's the only Abelisaur known from the area. But can I say for certain that the find wasn't a juvenile? No, because I can't do a close enough analysis on its skull sutures. But I'm going to go ahead and say that that's an analysis that can be done, and if it is, it will still come back as a juvenile Abelisaur. Because that's what it is. It has the rugose nasal bones. It has the foreshortened skull. It has every single characteristic you could possibly want for the skull of an Abelisaur, which are extremely distinctive. This isn't a matter that's up for debate. And just to illustrate this, what you've been looking at so far is actually a skull based on Nanotyrannus, which is almost certainly a juvenile Tyrannosaur. And we're going to now watch it, as I speak, grow to an adult Tyrannosaurus. Now, granted, we do not actually have ontogenetic stages for most of this, which means that this simulation that I made is just a most likely kind of thing. But these are the stages that we would probably expect to see if we were looking for growth stages of a Tyrannosaur. And one of the things I want you to notice is that at no point does it even vaguely resemble an Abelisaurid skull. Not in the least. And here we go. Full-grown Tyrannosaur.
Or something of that nature. We don't even have a full skull. But see, this is the problem. Paleontology rewards people not based on their effort, not based on what they actually find, but what they say they find, and nobody bothers to go back and check. That's what we actually have for Rugops. It's a partial skull.
What do you mean, go back and check? Check that it's not actually a baby Tyrannosaurus or some other non-Abelisaur dinosaur? Look, in his image, this is like someone wandering into an emergency room and finding that the doctor says that he's treating someone for a compound fraction of the tibia, and then you telling him, but have you checked for unbalanced humors, doctor? I'm trying to stay calm and nice here. And it's not easy. I cannot imagine what you think it is that needs to be rechecked in order to revise this analysis of the dinosaur. Please, if you see this, and I know that you know that I'm making these videos, please tell me what you think needs to be checked, and why you think it is at all reasonable that this extremely clearly Abelisaurid skull could belong to anything else.
This is ridiculous. This is where we are in science, where we can't even have a full skull. It's absolutely ridiculous.
So what, you think they should have just sat on the find until they found another specimen, or the rest of that specimen, if it ever existed? And then just, don't tell anyone that we found an Abelisaur skull in Niger. Don't tell, because we don't have enough of the body to make In His Image happy? That would actually be dishonest. Nothing that you've described up until this point in His Image is dishonest. What you are suggesting would be dishonest. You go with the data available. The data available says we have a geographically unique species of dinosaur here. They named it Rugops primus because it's the first Abelisaur found in Niger, or all of Africa. That tells us something significant. It tells us there were Abelisaurids at the time that Rugops lived in Africa. But no. We can't tell every single detail about this animal's anatomy, so we should just, what? Pretend it didn't exist?
And this just demonstrates, Rugops is just demonstrative of that point. Paleontology is broken. It's a mess. It's just an absolute mess. And there's nothing we can do to change it.
In His Image, I want to describe to you what's happening right now. You have an extremely low level of knowledge of paleontology, of dinosaur anatomy, of general reptile anatomy, of comparative anatomy, of cladistics, all of these things. Your knowledge in these areas is extremely low, and so you think there isn't much to it because you don't know how much there is that you don't know. As a result, you have an extremely inflated sense of confidence in your abilities in this area. Trust me, you do not know what you are talking about. Paleontology is not broken. You simply do not understand it. You are suffering from a severe case of Dunning-Kruger. Please, if you want to talk about paleontology, which I hope you do because it's really cool, go read up on it. Get to the point where you can have a conversation with a paleontologist that doesn't make them immediately want to pull their hair out because of how badly wrong you get almost everything you say about the field.
And hopefully this demonstrates why I'm so frustrated with paleontology and really with a lot of evolutionary science in general.
It does demonstrate why, actually. It demonstrates that you are frustrated with them because you lack a basic understanding of how those sciences operate.
Because Rugops is presented as having vestigial arms. All we've got's a skull. We don't know whether it was a juvenile or not. We don't know whether it was a full-size dinosaur. That's why I had to do the comparison earlier. We don't know if it was a full-size dinosaur.
No.
We don't know anything about it. All we know is it had teeth. And a very odd little arrangement on its scalp that maybe might have housed a frill at one point.
As has already been stated, we know what family it belonged to. As a result, we know it was a member of Ceratosauroidea. And we also know that this means that there almost certainly was a longer land connection between Africa and South America than had been previously assumed. Do we know for sure if it's a full-grown creature? I actually can't say for sure if we know that. However, I know that it can be determined, and even if it's not, it's certainly not a smaller juvenile member of any other family, so nothing about the conclusions of the paper would be overturned if it's not full-grown.
That's all we know about Rugops, but we're over there talking about it like it's a whole nother genera of dinosaur. We don't know that!
Yes, we do. We know that because the paper that you claim to have read described both the anatomical distinctives that separate Rugops from other Abelisaurids, as well as the fact that it's geographically isolated from other known Abelisaurid finds. Those two things put together are more than sufficient to name a new genus. Again, not genera, that's plural, genus.
And there are tons of dinosaur genera based on a couple of bones. And this is the problem. See, it's much more rewarding to find something new, particularly for somebody who is a up-and-comer in the field of geology and paleontology, than it is to discover the second of something old. So there's pressure to try and find something new, whether it's actually new or not.
I can't speak to geology, but in paleontology, unless what you're finding is an extremely common fossil, especially if it's something like a dinosaur, then chances are whatever you find is going to include some new material that no one has found before. And even so, even finds that are relatively unimpressive can still be written on. Yeah, it makes the news when a new organism is described for the first time, but if you actually look into the paleontology literature, it is just chock full of descriptions of animals that have already been described, simply because there's a new find. No one is looking down on anyone for making the 841st paper describing Ornithomimus edmontonicus. In fact, yeah, I've read a paper that focused almost entirely on a new find that was pretty much entirely composed of ornithomimid foot elements. See, in his image, you don't know enough about the literature to even know what kinds of things are in the literature. All you have is secondary sources. And maybe sometimes you read the papers about those secondary sources. But have you ever actually gone looking through literature? Have you ever found a taxon that you wanted to know more about, and then just looked to see how many papers there were about it, and read some of them?
Right? So just a brief video on Rugops, and really something illustrative of an overall problem that comes along with not just paleontology, but really any form of science in general. That they've got this major problem where there's this pressure on these young graduate students and postdocs to discover something new because that's the only way they're going to get published, and being published is the only way they get grants coming in, and it's the only way they get prestigious academic positions.
You're wrong.
You're so wrong.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong.
And Rugops, I think, is just an added example of that. Although it was used also to try and push a different version of Pangea, but that's a subject for another video. All right, thanks all for tuning in. Much shorter video than usual today. Hope everyone's enjoyed, and hopefully it was a blessing to you. And be sure to keep checking in, guys. I'll be putting up more videos as I have time. All right, have a good one.
Well, I guess that's it for me then, too. I just want to say thank you very much to Great Stump for this wonderful fan art that I'm using today. Again, if any of you want me to use your fan art, please send it to me on Discord or Twitter or something like that, and I will make sure that I can try to fit it into a video. I really, really like seeing all the awesome drawings you guys do of me. As for In His Image, I hope he has a good day too, and I really, really hope that he works on his paleontology. Well, that being said, if you like this video, make sure you hit like. Tell me in the comments why you liked it, and if you hated it, hit dislike and tell me why. And if you're not already subscribed, make sure you hit that subscription button and then hit the bell, the real subscription button that tells YouTube, yes, I actually do want to be subscribed to this channel. Anyway, I'm the Dapper Dinosaur. Thanks for watching, but before you go, I'd like to thank my patrons, especially my $20 and above patrons, Van Tovend, Ian Chen, Speed of Sound, Chris Love, Henry Hutanen, and Bob Knob. My patrons help me keep this channel going because, as you may know, YouTube is a very volatile platform. If you'd like to help out, my patron tiers start at only $1 a month, and it automatically gets you access to the exclusive patron-only Discord server, as well as early access to my videos and voting for what next topic should be. For example, my patrons tend to be the ones who decide which episodes of Things That Aren't Dinosaurs I'm going to do, as well as sometimes who I'm going to cover next in the next debunking series. If you feel like a monthly donation isn't right for you, but you'd still like to support the channel, remember, every like and share and comment helps the channel. But if you'd like to help in a more material way, I do have a wish list for Amazon.com and a Teespring store. Links in the description. Thanks for watching.
So you found the skeleton. How would you tell people that you personally? How would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on this.